It's moving season. Folks are out donating their pre-loved items to St. Vinny's. So it's also a prime time to thrift that affordable furniture and clothing. And speaking of donating, did you know that Vinny's does free at-home pickups across Dane County? Pack up your items, give them a call, and they'll pick up your goods for free. If you have bulky furniture like tables and couches, y'all, skip the landfill. Give your goods a second life. And when you support St. Vinny's, you support families in need in Dane County. To schedule a home pickup, visit the website svdpmadison.org/home-pickups. Today on CityCast Madison. It's Thursday, so of course, we're dishing on Madison's food scene. It may come as no surprise that urban farming is a way of life for many Madisonians. And while you may not see many cows within city limits, Madison is still very much a part of America's farmland. You don't have to go far to find a neighbor with chickens, a neighbor growing basil, or tending to their backyard greenhouse. Why aren't these folks just shopping at Woodman's and calling it a day? Well, we sat down with urban farmer and owner of Voss Organics, Mark Voss, to ask about homesteading in Madtown and how those less acquainted with the soil can start growing their own food. It's Thursday, August 15th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, Bianca, glad to be here.
So happy to have you. So folks know who you are. Start off by sharing, what is Voss Organics?
Voss Organics is an urban farm on Madison's north side, and we produce seedlings and organically, biodynamically raised vegetables that we make available to specialty restaurants in town.
Nice. I love it. And so you shared a little bit, but tell us more about where you grow your produce and where you sell.
Right. We're on the north side, and we have a 1/3 acre urban lot, and that's where we live and that's where we grow. And we sell at the Dane County Farmers Market, where we've been selling since 1995. So it'll be our 30th year next year selling at the Dane County Farmers Market.
Wow.
I know. It's so great.
Big.
I just love that market so much. And we also sell at the North Side Farmers Market, our neighborhood market. And we've been members there since they started. I'm not sure how long that's been, maybe 15 years ago or something like that. And we also sell at the Willie Street Co-op stores. And we also sell at K&A greenhouses.
I love it. And so I understand you are a retired longtime public school teacher, de français. I also, I have to say it, you look like you could have been a Hollywood actor. You're giving Brad Pitt.
Oh, go on. Say more about that, Bianca.
Yeah, I mean, I had to share that because folks can't see you. But how did you end up getting into urban farming in Madison?
Well, let's see. I went to school in Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, for economics. And after I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. But I had a curiosity about travel, and I wanted to contribute to the world. And so I joined the Peace Corps. And I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa, in Togo. And I worked with farmers there in co-ops, and they were actually the ones that taught me about what it was to be an organic farmer. And I just fell in love with the people that I was working with, who were really hardworking and really gifted farmers. And when I came back to the United States, I wanted to get into education, but I also wanted to see if there was a way that growing food could inform my teaching. And so in order for me to explore that, I needed to kind of get good at farming. And so I became an apprentice on an organic and biodynamic farm in Whitewater. And I always wanted to take the farming that I was doing into the education that I was doing. So when I became a teacher in the Middleton district, I always started a school garden.
Nice.
That I tried to integrate that into my French teaching. And the last 3 years of my teaching career was at Clark Street Community School, and they have a large school garden there. And we did a lot of interdisciplinary sustainability-based seminars that used the garden as the classroom. And those were some of the best teaching years that I had. I just really enjoyed that so much.
I love it. The garden as the classroom. And I have to say, Madison has to be the most farm-forward city I've ever lived in. And I'm excited to talk to you about urban farming. For those who are less farm-oriented, what is organic farming and what does biodynamic farming mean?
Yeah, so organic farming is really about not using any chemicals or anything that's artificial. So it really is about caring for the soil by using compost and having a diverse garden so that you're not going to be attracting pests to like a field of corn, for example. So it's really about diversifying, feeding the soil, and having as much of a healthy landscape as you can have. And biodynamic agriculture has an understanding of certain forces in nature. And it uses certain preparations that you put in the compost pile and that you also put on the landscape, on the plants and in the soil. It's sort of like homeopathy for the garden. And so it establishes a connection between a farm or a garden and these sort of cosmic healing forces. So it's really a special way to farm, and it really puts you in touch with kind of an agricultural spirituality.
That sounds very crunchy, very Madison. Cosmic, love it. So can you share from your perspective, like how much is that sort of farming, biodynamic farming being used in Madison?
Well, anyone that buys my seedlings at the farmer's market or at the co-op is doing biodynamic farming, whether they know it or not, because we use biodynamic preparations in our compost, and then our compost goes into our seedling mix, and then those homeopathic, cosmically aligned ingredients in the soil mix then go into people's gardens, and they have that cosmic connection. Other than at Voss Organics in Madison, I don't know that anybody else is necessarily doing biodynamic farming, but there are sort of biodynamic farming hubs in Wisconsin. One is in Viroqua in western Wisconsin, and one is in East Troy in eastern Wisconsin.
I have family from Viroqua. They were farmers.
Yeah.
But can you share maybe, and you shared a little bit, but any certain techniques that go with biodynamic farming just to give us an even stronger picture?
Yeah, sure. So there are plants that are believed to have these sort of unique connections to these cosmic forces. For example, stinging nettle, chamomile, valerian, dandelion, and oak trees. And so biodynamic farmers use preparations that are made with those particularly connected plants that then they put in their compost pile.
I really think of those as very medicinal plants for humans. They have properties that, that help certain ailments, or at least, I'm not a doctor, but that's what I've been told and sometimes use them for.
Well, I think that all of those plants have medicinal qualities, and because they have these sort of connections to these planetary forces, they're helpful for humans, but they're also helpful for the earth. And so by putting them into the compost pile and then putting them onto the landscape, they also have these healing qualities. And we also do some of this sort of medicinal application to the plants by stirring in water some of the homeopathic preparations.
So we've heard you describe growing food as a radical act. Is this part of it? Like what does that mean?
I think of growing your own food as a radical act simply because you're doing it for yourself and you're stepping out of capitalist society. And if you're good at growing green beans, for example, and your neighbor is good at growing tomatoes, then you can have this sort of village connection where you're stepping out of the marketplace, out of the capitalist marketplace. And I feel like the more people can rely on their connection to the land and to each other, the less they need to participate in the capitalist economy. I think that's a radical act.
Yeah, and being so community forward, there's a lot of power in that. And this conversation is striking me. There was recently Quantice Winters. She's a food doula. She was dubbed the Madison Library's naturalist in residence. And we did a whole conversation with her about stinging nettles and different things that you can find locally, that you can do things at home from, grab weeds from your own backyard. And they're not just weeds, they're actually really powerful stuff.
This podcast brought to you by Ring. With Ring cameras, you can check on your pets to catch them in the act.
Izzy, drop that.
Or just keep them company.
Aw, I'll be home soon.
Make sure they're okay while you're away. With Ring. Learn more at ring.com/pets.
The land down under has never been easier to reach. United Airlines has more flights between the U.S. and Australia than any other U.S. airline, so you can fly nonstop to destinations like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Explore dazzling cities, savor the very best of Aussie cuisine, and get up close and personal with the wildlife. Who doesn't want to hold a koala? Go to united.com/Australia to book your adventure.
So let's talk about the sort of village in Madison, the farming community. Can you give us an overview of the landscape of Madison's urban farming community, sort of that broader picture, what it looks like today, and maybe how it's evolved over the years?
Sure. So one reason that I came to Wisconsin after my travels to West Africa as a Peace Corps volunteer, and then I did some traveling after, I came specifically to Madison because of the strength of the farming community in and around Madison. And Madison was one of the strongest hubs of community-supported agriculture in the country in the early 90s. And so as someone who wanted to come to a place and learn about farming, South Central Wisconsin was the place to be, because there were so many farmers who were so generous with their knowledge that someone who was hungry to learn found a good place to be. And so I have found community in urban farming in Madison with Robert Pierce, who is a major force on the south side of Madison at the Southside Farmers Market. Troy Community Farm on Madison's north side is a really strong urban farming force. And then my friend Krista from Dirty Girls Farm is also another north side urban farmer. So we really support each other, and as do all of the farmers that come together at the various farmers markets around town. And there's an East Side Farmers Market and a North Side Farmers Market, and then, of course, the West Side Farmers Market and the one on the square. So, oh my gosh, there's so many farmers markets.
There's so many farmers markets, and there's so many people doing the good work. I love the shout outs that you gave. And I saw a video of you being interviewed at your farm in your backyard, and I was more than charmed. I was impressed. Like it's a certified bona fide space right here in the city of Madison. And I did wonder, what are the differences between urban farms and rural farms in terms of the challenges that you face? So you don't really hear so much about what urban farmers are facing.
I feel like there are a lot of bonuses to being an urban farmer because you're close to your markets. I think a lot of rural farmers struggle with finding help. They're finding people that are willing to work hard, and maybe folks have to drive to get to their farms in order to work there. And I feel incredibly privileged to be in the city because I don't have far to deliver my produce to the restaurants that I serve. I don't have far to go. I can wake up late and get to the farmer's market. It's about 7 minutes away. And so, I think of my rural farming colleagues who might be 2 hours away. And
right.
In my early days of farming, I did farm in Viroqua, and I farmed in Cottage Grove, and I farmed in Deerfield. And, just getting your produce to market it takes time, and it takes money. It takes a vehicle. So I'm, again, incredibly privileged. I have young people that live right here on my street who are happy to help out, as well as people my age and older who love to just come and help in the garden. And so finding a willing workforce has never been a problem.
Your village is right there.
Literally is right here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
And I think often of the many fantastic local restaurants that really focus on farm to table food. So I'm thinking Gray's, Heritage, Mintmark, Fairchild. How do you see the relationship between biodynamic farming practices, organic farming practices, and this broader local food movement in Madison?
Well, again, I think the strength of the Dane County Farmers Market and the support that I'm going to give a shout out to Odessa Piper, who was
She's been on my mind this whole time we're talking, because we interviewed her, and she's radical.
Yeah.
In a beautiful way.
She was a wonderful patron of my farm when she owned L'Etoile. And now her lineage now is with Tori Miller, and he is a great supporter of Voss Organics as well. So I just feel that these chefs, these owner proprietors of Lombardino's and Green Owl are two of our biggest supporters too. And the fact that they want to support urban and rural agriculture in Wisconsin, it's just a testament to the dedication, but also to the flavor and to the nutrition that they want to bring to their patrons. And it's just, I just want to celebrate them.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you called Odessa Piper out, because that conversation with her was one of the more magical ones I've ever had. So we'll be sure to throw that link in our show notes so folks can listen back. But thinking about another magical person, I heard that you have a special mentor, farm to table icon Alice Waters. First of all, is that true? And second of all, what have you learned from her?
Well, Alice Waters is one of the biggest advocates for school gardens. And so that was my first connection to her, was that I know that she was a big supporter of Martin Luther King Middle School in Berkeley, California's school garden program, and that she was a real teacher of mine in terms of getting a school garden going and then connecting the curriculum to the school garden and getting those delicious flavors into the mouths of the kids, and so that they're realizing that fresh food is so delicious. And if they have a hand in planting and tending and harvesting, then it's a slam dunk that they're going to be eating it too. And so there was a Food for Thought Festival invitation for Alice Waters to come to Madison. And I forget what year it was. It was in the early 2000s, I believe. And it was centered around school gardens. And Alice Waters was invited, and I had the good fortune of being on a panel with her to talk about the importance of school gardens. So I got to eat dinner with her and talk about the importance of school gardens. But I also, as part of my French teaching, always showed a biography of Alice Waters on an American Masters series from PBS, where she talked about her work in school gardens and just how flavor is such an important aspect of French culture. And as a French teacher, that was something then we could eat in class. And that was, of course, the kids' favorite thing to do.
Yeah. That was one of the jarring things I learned in French class in high school. Just so you know, they eat much better in France than we do. But maybe in Madison, I don't know, maybe we're living in a Valhalla a little bit in terms of a lot of the country, because there really is this emphasis on having urban farms. Do you have any recommendations for folks who are listening, community members or consumers of your food, like how they might start their own urban gardens?
Well, I think it's really important to find a nice sunny spot. And if you have lawn there, or if you have maybe a weed patch, it's so easy to just get it started by putting some cardboard down, putting some good compost on top, and then just planting some seeds or some robust organic biodynamic seedlings that maybe you buy at the farmer's market or at the co-op, for example. And just get started small. And, I want to even say it's even simpler than that. You can just get a 5-gallon bucket and put some good potting soil from the garden center in there and grow a tomato or a basil plant or some lettuce, and just start small and manageable. And then you'll get the bug, and then you'll see how flavorful something that you pick from your own garden tastes compared to something from the grocery store. And you'll be hooked. and then you'll want to grow more and more and more.
Yes. I've got one last question for you, which is, what does this work offer you? Like, I just feel such a positive energy coming off of you, and you seem very nourished. What does this farming offer you personally?
Wow, that's a great question. And, you know, when I'm in the greenhouse in the springtime and it's cold outside and maybe there's even snow on the ground, and I walk into the greenhouse and there's that humid smell of green. You know, the plants are giving off the oxygen, and I feel like it's like almost like a bariatric chamber. You know, it's just like all this oxygen is coming from these plants, and I'm breathing out carbon dioxide. And there's just like this aliveness, whether it's in the greenhouse in the early spring or it's in the garden this time of year. There's just like this reciprocity between the plants in the garden and me as their tender that, I don't know, it really does feed me. I feel so nourished, not just the nutrients of the vegetables, but just the energy of the plants and the interaction of like this more than human world of the soil bacteria and the plants and the bees, the butterflies, and the nature spirits that live in the garden. Like they're there, you know, and I feel them, and I make this beautiful place for them, and they nourish me right back.
Well, Mark, this has been the loveliest talking with you. Thank you so much for talking about urban farming and your work with Voss Organics. It's been really, really lovely.
So nice to be here. Thanks for asking me.
That's Mark Voss, grower and owner of Voss Organics. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone who really nourishes your soul? All right, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, have fun.